Okay, so we're going to call this meeting to order. Note that this is the time and place for the Ethics Commission meeting for May 9th, 2024. We have nobody online, so we have everybody present besides Commissioner Zimmerman. So we'll find out if we have quorum. Clerk, roll call, please.
Church,
Here.
Howarth,
Present.
King,
Present.
Rourke,
Here.
Zimmerman, 4 present, 1 absent.
Okay, our first order of business is consideration of minutes from last we met on January 11th, 2024. And I guess for the record and anybody that may be watching this in the future, there were some edits to the annual report that Commissioner Rourke, I'll read it as we have it here. Commissioner Rourke suggests some edits to page 4 of the annual report to edit phrase "an opinion on request for advisory opinion 23-3 was not issued because the employee was requesting the opinion left service prior to issuing the opinion," to be rewritten as the employee requesting the opinion left city prior to the opinion being issued. Were you satisfied, Commissioner Rourke, to those edits?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Okay, the second one was discussion between the commissioners and legal regarding advisory opinion 23-3. And if it is a part of the public record as an opinion was never finalized. Discussion followed on the word draft on the website and in the annual report, and legal advice that it should be a separate motion. Commissioners, anything? Are you satisfied with that discussion or on 2303?
No concerns for me, Mr. Chair.
And last, Commissioner Rourke moved to approve the annual report 2023 with the phrasing changes to page 4. And there isn't anything to discuss on that. I'll entertain a motion to approve minutes from January 11th.
I move to approve the minutes from January 11th.
Second the motion.
Roll call vote.
Church,
Aye.
Howarth,
Aye.
King,
Aye.
Rourke,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Okay, so I've been advised the next 4 items on the agenda for requests, on next 4 items on the agenda, we have no inquiries, determinations to be scheduled. So if the commissioners don't have anything, we can move to special business. Nothing said, so special business. The only thing we have here, a discussion, the item included in the agenda allow for you to discuss amongst yourselves with the commission staff, any questions or concerns with the current employee and current handbook or commissioner rules to suggest any changes you may have. For example, the current handbook has references outdated sections of the Idaho Code, which could be updated. Is there any questions on or concerns or anything needs to be rewritten or resaid for the handbook?
Mr. Chairman, I'd appreciate some comments from staff regarding the outdated references and anything else that they see that needs improvement. I had time just to thumb through the handbook very quickly, but I could not detect anything that was obviously out of date.
Do you have anything, Patrick? Or we could just go to email activity if. Okay. Thank you, Church.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Rourke, I think we've previously discussed this briefly. There are some outdated references in the handbook to sections of Idaho code that were moved in from other chapters, and they were consolidated, and we're still referencing those old chapters. It's not a substantive problem because the laws weren't changed. They were just moved and the numbering was changed. So we could update the handbook that way. I think the other things on this, that was just an example of one of the things that we wanted you guys to have the opportunity, if there were any issues associated with either the rules themselves, the policies, the handbook, if there was anything that you wanted to ask questions about or suggest changes to, that was the opportunity and why that item was included on the agenda.
I appreciate that. It looks as though the handbook was updated in 2022, and to my eye, it looked very user-friendly, helpful. It was relatively compact. I think the examples are quite helpful in terms of the kinds of questions that have been brought to this body before and the kinds of answers that we've delivered. So I'm happy with the substance of the handbook, but would appreciate having the references to state code updated.
I guess my question is, would you think this would be a good item to table till next meeting? That way we can get some more eyes on, or should we just accept it as is?
We, this isn't something time sensitive, is it? In that we have to raise it at this meeting or we lose the opportunity until next year or something? Okay, I'd appreciate having the opportunity to look at it, but I don't think there's anything wrong with taking the first run through and updating the code sections. And if we each have a chance to look at it prior to next meeting, we can address anything additional at that time.
Mr. Chairman, not at this time. If this was not an action item that it was more of an information item and a discussion item for you. So I don't think you need a motion to table.
Okay, thank you, sir. With that being said, Patrick, if you could come forward, I guess we going to go into any inquiries or any emails.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So one of the things that comes into the ethics inbox by far the most, it's almost exclusively what comes in are travel requests, which are typically not forwarded onto this body, but that would be something that if that's an area you would want to look at seeing some of these travel requests. Traditionally, that's not been done, but that was one of the topic areas where the inbox activity is primarily internal travel requests. And that is, again, in the last several months, the vast majority of what came in. And those are handled by HR and legal according to the current policy, but there is room for that to change. One substantive change on the hotline side is the number for the ethics hotline has actually been updated to a new telephone number. The background there is there was a company that provided a third-party service with a hotline number. The hotline is very, very rarely used, and the city was paying for that service. So that number has been brought internally to a City of Boise unused number, and it's still totally anonymous, and it still gives people the ability to leave a voicemail without a callback number or name. They can provide that if they want in the body of the message, but so that new number, just for the record, is 208-972-8108, and that's been updated in the handbook, and anywhere where that number was published, it's been updated. So far, other than internal tests, there actually has been one call to the new hotline number and a voicemail message was left, but near as we can tell, it was a mistake. Being that it's anonymous, there's no way to reach back out to the person, and there was no wording in the message. It seemed to be, it was just silence for a second or two, and then a hangup. And since that number's public, as well as the email inbox and numerous other methods to reach the commission, the assumption is that if that person had meant to pass along something, they would have been able to, and they would have done that. And there's no way to reach out to them anyway. So that is the only activity on the hotline. Are there any questions for staff on these points?
Thank you. I did have a question. So now that it's under city control, how are these messages stored? You know, who's listening to these messages? Is there a transcript of them? I would imagine a third party would be keeping them in, you know, some kind of space. What does that look like here now?
Good question. So the Ethics Commission has its own distinct inbox, which only certain people have access to, and that's on a business need basis. I don't know offhand who currently has access to that, but the only people I know have access to it are myself and Sarah Martin in Human Resources. Theoretically, IT would have access to any city email as well. And the messages, all messages on city phones, if a voicemail is left, it generates an email with an audio recording of that message to the email account on file. And so when a message is left on that line, there's nobody monitoring the actual phone line. The message gets forwarded into the inbox, which is then viewable by staff in HR. And those emails are retained according to the document retention schedule under code by the clerk's office. Hopefully that.
And that was, you had Navex Global
Correct.
beforehand, and I'm assuming when they had a report come in, they would send it via email to that same email address, or?
Interestingly, Chairman Howarth, I don't know, because there's not been a hotline message in my entire time working with the commission. It's been, and that was part of the calculus, is there was no other use of the Navex service besides that, and it was not being used. And it's a different number entirely from anything city related. And as part of just cost savings and an effort to increase people's likelihood to use the hotline to pass along information, that's where the decision was made just on the staff end to update that number and now no longer pay costs to use that service.
Okay, well, I guess we don't have necessarily a benchmark or status quo prior. I wouldn't have any concerns with that, and not that my opinion matters, but it sounds like a smart budget decision.
The other thing I could do on the staff side is try to get an answer to that question. Sarah Martin would know.
Just a confirmation that it follows the same retention schedule that would be required of any other documentation is, I think, all we need. Doesn't necessarily matter what we were doing prior, just as long as there would still be access if there theoretically had been anything that had come through Navex Global, but doesn't sound like that's likely.
I agree. I think it makes sense from a cost saving measure, as a cost saving measure. I also wonder whether we might implement some kind of internal audit measure for the new hotline, since that was really the only third party means of getting in touch with the commission, so that we can have that same kind of accountability in place to assure folks that this isn't a black hole where concerns go to die and are never considered. So if it's possible to have whatever sort of internal audit procedure occurs for the city, whether that's annually or quarterly or whatever, to try to get this baked in so that their eyes put on it. And we can say in the next annual report that accompanying this change, we've got some controls in place to make sure that we don't miss anything and that there is accountability. That would be a good measure, in my view. And it sounds like the work would be light.
Chairman Rourke, just to make sure I captured that, it sounds like you envision some sort of auditing mechanism to make sure that there's transparency and accountability, where if somebody's leaving a voicemail message to the updated hotline, it is being received, it is being viewed and passed along accordingly.
That's right. And so it might, the audit would probably look at two things. What are the processes and procedures associated with this hotline? Who's in the communication chain? What does custody look like? Retention schedule, all that sort of thing. And then maybe just some report about, the number of messages that were left. And it sounds like there's at least one sort of mistaken call, at least apparently, and then some internal tests. That would be reassuring, I think, to the public.
Thank you.
Okay, is that it for the email and hotline activity?
Mr. Chairman, yes, that's all I have.
Okay, before we move into adjournment, I just had a question for you, Patrick. Sorry, I should have asked you to continue standing. I apologize.
No problem.
So how do we promote, and this ethics committee is a one of a kind, and Mr. Rourke, Chairman Rourke was a part of creating this. Is there a way, are we promoting ourselves efficiently? I know we hadn't had a lot in the past few months, but how are we going about promoting this committee to the city? Is that just online, in the homepage, or new hires, or how does that look?
Mr. Chairman, that's a good question. There's always, to my knowledge, been some version of an online Boise Ethics Commission page. The ethics handbook's online, and that information has been available online. But one thing that is a newer addition is I actually present every other week to new hires in the new teammate orientation for city employees. And we revamped that, HR revamped that within the last year or so. And it now includes a portion on ethics where new city employees do receive a handout with information about the handbook, where to go to find it. And we kind of walk through some of the basics of what to know now that you're a government employee, and we talk about the commission and that sort of thing in new teammate training. Other than that, it's, as far as I know, just basically what's available on the internet.
I think it's just a good idea that, if we can gather some thoughts to see how we can approach the masses. It's good to see that it's slow and people are conducting themselves honestly and, ethically. But just to people who aren't familiar with the ethics, new hires, new employees should be able to reach out to those folks, and just keep that in your mind, commissioners, if you have anything come up that we can make ourselves more apparent to the public, would be awesome. With that being said, if any of the other commissioners have anything to say, we can move into adjournment.
I think my only question, now that I think more about these travel requests, is it a part of a standard process that any travel request needs to be sent into the commission email, or are people potentially confused about what in a travel request might implicate the code of ethics?
Chairman Howarth, or Commissioner Howarth, excuse me, I'm going to do the best I can with this. My understanding is if the funds of the travel are being provided by a third party, that's when it needs to be sent to the Ethics Commission inbox, and it's reviewed by both HR and legal and approved or not approved. Ordinary travel that's being paid by city funds goes to council, and it's a different process. I don't know for sure when and how that process began, but my understanding is the process and protocol would have it go that direction. And what my understanding is too, is that it's something that it doesn't implicate the ethics code and present an ethics code question. And if it were to, then it would be passed along, but it's under the current processes, it is dealt with by staff.
Okay, that's helpful. Yeah, I don't know that we need to see any of those and assume we would if there was a denial and then some sort of disagreement as to the basis for it, that we might get a request for an advisory opinion or, okay, that's it. That makes sense.
When I or legal respond to travel requests or any kind of question or inquiry that are directed the way of the Ethics Commission inbox, we always inform people that they have the option to submit a request for advisory opinion or present their question to the Ethics Commission. And we don't give substantive responses on behalf of the commission. We can point people to resources, that sort of thing. And with travel requests, we will approve it on behalf of HR and legal. But in all cases, we make people aware that they can bring any kind of question that they may have to the commission.
Thank you.
Well, that's a good question. I like where you're heading toward it. And I guess we can always go back and review if any changes or any steps we need to do on our end to kind of look at, travel requests, I think is appreciated. But saying that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. If the commissioners don't have anything else they would like to discuss.
Move to adjourn.
I second.
Roll call vote.
Church,
Aye.
Howard,
Aye.
King,
Aye.
Rourke.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.